And our first speaker will be Dr. Lorayne Robertson. She's also a co-chair of this session. Dr. Lorayne Robertson is from University of Ontario Institute of Technology, Canada, former Assistant Dean in the Faculty of Education and former Director of the Graduate Programs in Education. Dr. Robertson, please, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. No, the volume's not good. How's that for volume? Is that good? Give me a thumbs up or something. Yay, thank you so much. So thank you, Powell, for that introduction. It'll be fun this morning, co-chairing. And thanks for the loan of the program, because I forgot mine today, but appreciate that. So I'm going to talk this morning about digital literacies, and I'm going to make an argument for the concept of digital literacy, a literacy that's digital, that is something that we can no longer think about whether or not something's going to happen with it, but it's something that I would argue is an imperative in higher education today. And I work in higher education. So this is a quick overview of what I'm going to go through this morning. I'm going to define literacy. I'm going to talk a little bit about the changing context, which other speakers have done throughout the last couple of days. Talk about the World Wide Web and the internet and what's happened with an explosion of new ways to be literate, not just literacy as it's come to be defined. Then I'm going to explore with you some new theoretical frameworks of literacy, digital literacy, and then I'm hoping to end today with some examples that have been created by students at my university. And I am from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, which is in Canada, and very grateful to be in Orlando this week. So I'm going to start with a couple of really well-established definitions of literacy. So in the United States, the National Assessment of Adult Literacy defines literacy this way. It defines it as tasks and as skills. The tasks are to be able to use printed and written information to function in society in order to achieve goals and to develop one's potential. At the skills level, the adult literacy test defines word-level reading skills and higher-level literacy skills. So I'd like you to keep that in mind, and then I'll go to the next slide, and we'll look at how Canada defines literacy. So Canada defines it not as a skill or a behavior, but defines it as a capacity or mode of behavior. So something that can be developed in a person. The ability to understand and use printed information in daily activities. These activities can be at home, at work, and in the community to achieve goals and to develop knowledge and potential. So just a quick comparison between the definition of literacy from the United States and the definition from Canada shows that they both talk about skills or behavior. They both talk about acquiring these skills in order to reach your potential or to reach your goals. But what's pretty interesting about both of them is that neither of them talk about digital literacy. So they present literacy essentially as print literacy only. But they do talk about the fact that gaining literacy is positive for you, more literacy is better, or higher levels of literacy is better, and this can help you to reach your goals. So, given that some of the standard definitions of literacy, and in other places, for example, UNESCO and other global places, define literacy basically by print literacy, I began a search for how literacy in the digital age is being defined. So Berners-Lee's goals, when he started sharing information on the World Wide Web, he said that his goals were to communicate, to share ideas, to share data, and to collaborate. And he saw the World Wide Web essentially as a tool for people to use. And of course, we've been talking about that this week, that the World Wide Web, as he knew it at that time, is now 30 years old. So I don't know, one of my favorite sites to go to is internetlivestats.com. I don't know if you do geeky things like that, but at any moment you can see how many people are on the internet in the world just by going to that site, and how many websites, how many emails were sent that day, which of course is in the billions, how many Google searches happened that day, and so on. So it's incongruous that the definition of literacy from Canada and the United States doesn't include anything to do with digital literacy. Because, and I am not the only one at the conference this week to talk about this, digital literacy has really exploded into our lives, into our daily lives. It's part of our relationships. It's part of selfies, how we present ourselves on the internet. It's fake news is part of our daily lexicon. We are all concerned about digital privacy. The research shows that clearly. We're worried about our digital footprint being tracked. Memes are a gigantic source of humor and satire in our daily lives, as well as social media, the now 24-hour news cycles, and digital footprints and events like online shaming, for example, with memes. So given this digital literacy explosion, different groups have tried to define what is digital literacy. So you can find in the literature definitions of ICT literacy, computer literacy, very good, complicated definitions of media literacy, for example, from Europe, and health literacy in ways that has been very helpful to define health literacy. So is digital literacy just another literacy, or is digital literacy something more? And I used one of my favorite cartoons, borrowing terribly from Dr. Seuss. Maybe digital literacy perhaps means a little bit more. So let's move into the territory where some people, some academics have theorized these new literacies. And one that appeals to me because to me it fits is the work of Lancashire and Noble, who have written extensively about new literacies. And Lancashire likes to divide them between the new technical stuff and the new ethos stuff. So the new technical stuff, we know, is changing daily, so that today someone can remix easily audio and video and create new creations. Snapchat, the world has gone mobile. We use the cloud for storage. Unlimited new apps and education apps as well. Today I'm going to use an example of a graphic novel. And technical skills that even 5 or 10 years ago were very difficult are now really simple to do. But Lancashire says, don't forget that there is this new ethos stuff that comes along with the technical stuff. And this new ethos stuff is being able to work cyberspatially, working in participatory work groups with collaboration, being able to distribute your work, in working in hybrid spaces, working as a collective, and working where the expertise and authority are dispersed. Sorry, I had collective there twice, didn't realize it. So I take you back to 1996. So here we are on the cusp of what is going to happen with the internet, and a group of very respected intellectuals met excuse me, over the course of a year. And their focus in their writing was what is going to happen to literacy with the advent of the internet. And their paper is well worth reading. I couldn't tell you how many times it's been cited because it became kind of a manifesto for how literacy would be developed. And considering that they got together in 1996 to write it, it's been very interesting for me as a literacy teacher over the years to watch aspects of what they theorized come to fruition. But here are some of their ideas, which you could imagine at the time, 1996, these ideas were quite radical. They said, we're going to shift from one form of literacy, and that's actually what the Canadian and the American definitions are, still basically one form of literacy. We're going to switch to thinking about people having multiple literacies or multiliteracies. The standard form of English is going to change, and there are going to be multiple languages accepted and multiple forms of English accepted, which I can tell you from Canadian higher education has become a reality. They said at that time, we're going to switch from a single text form to multiple forms of text, such as video and hypertext and emojis and so on. Of course, they didn't predict emojis, but those were words I added. But they said that we're going to move away from the canonized, formalized, monolingual, monocultural, rule-governed language. In this case, they were talking about imperialism or imperial English, to actually officially recognizing a multiplicity of discourses, including non-standard dialects. And I know for certain in Canada that this has happened in the universities and colleges. But there was something else that the New London Group said that was really, really powerful. They said, teaching and learning are going to be redefined in a digital era. It's going to be now less authoritarian, and teaching and learningship is going to become a relationship that is created in the right conditions. And so they saw that literacy pedagogy needed to change so that everyone on the planet would have access to a good social future. And they saw the internet and they saw digital literacy as making this change. So another scholar who's written extensively and couldn't be left out today is Buckingham. He said, digital literacy is so much more than just information and technology. And this is how he defined what students need to know about digital literacy. Now, mind you, this was 16 years ago, but he said that what is going to happen is that information and media are becoming blurred, that information for coming to students in digital format is packaged and mediated, and we've definitely seen a growth in that type of information packaging. Personal relationships will become digital and will be conducted online. The internet is how students understand, take in the world, but also how they represent themselves to the world. That media are culture or cultural, that the internet is not neutral, and we should be teaching students to question the source. That media are symbolic, persuasive, and emotional, and that the internet will gather personal information from the user. So not bad for 2003 for Buckingham's thoughts about students and digital literacy. So I'm going to close today with some of my thoughts and what I have found happening to me. I teach 100% online in synchronous learning, so my students are all on screen. They're about this high, all of my graduate students. So I have definitely found especially over the last 10 years, that I have shifted from teacher-centered to a learner-centered type of teaching, working with my students online. Far less initially was me doing a lot of information delivery. Now it's much more their social construction of knowledge. I was more certain initially when I was teaching. Now I find that we work together on inquiry. There is less certainty, but definitely a need for students to be more agile and for me to be more agile. We do still work toward standard English, but in my class, my students are all over the world. There are many accents, there are many voices, and they bring literacy skills that are much broader than what they would have acquired in school. So their learning outside of school is huge. So initially, my teaching was monocultural, but now I have shifted to become much more culturally relevant, relying on the students to bring their culture and experiences and ideas into the classroom. And I've really shifted from more formal forms of assessment to more formative forms of assessment. So that's just for myself. That's what digital literacies have happened with me. So I'm going to end with just 3 examples of how, just personally for me, how things are changing. I know that in the United States and definitely in Canada, we are facing one of the toughest crises we've ever faced, and that is the death of young people from opioid overdose. So in my purse, I carry a Narcan kit, the nasal kind. And I'm part of a project. There are 14 of us. We work across disciplines, and we have been developing materials to teach about opioid overdose and engaging the bystander in saving the overdose victim. So this is just an example of one of our projects, a graphic novel, and it has taken off unbelievably for teachers to use with their classes. It might be something you might want a copy of. We're still running it past classes and getting their feedback, but we are happy to share because this is a tremendous issue in Canada, and as a group, we're committed to addressing it. So our goal next year at our university is to use this graphic novel with all of our pharmacy and science and health science students. This is just another example of student work. This is from my graduate class on digital literacy, actually. They just made this a couple of weeks ago. But I asked them to conceptualize what a digital literacy framework would look like for whatever age they taught. And my students teach all ages, including adults. And they came up with this one to appeal to students who would be 8 to 10 years old. And as soon as I saw it, I said, this is really appealing. I think students can connect with this. I think they can understand that to be digitally literate, they need to find and verify. They need to have critical thinking. But when they're online, they need to show ethics and empathy, and they need to engage positively with their community. And I thought the last emoji I wasn't that fond of, but anyway, digital health, privacy and security, and producing and consuming online. But I mean, this is a start, because I believe that every school and every university needs to have a digital literacy framework, that we can no longer rely on literacies that have been defined as print only. So I'll just set up this last video and then step down and watch it with you. This is from a Fundamentals of Professional Writing course. So this is bachelor's level. And this course, maybe it's the same at your university, has been taught the same way for decades, where students come in, work on their sentences, work on their paragraphs, work on building up to a paper. It has in the past been very grammar-based and very writing-based. So I was working with a new young professor, and she said to me, I want to change how we teach the fundamentals of writing, and I want to make it about digital literacies. So she and the class brainstormed 5 critical issues in Canada today, and the students broke off into groups, and each group produced a video, and then they wrote a paper based on their research, and that's how she changed the professional writing course. So it takes 3 minutes, so I'm going to play that for you now and then close off. So I'll just close off. The young professor asked me if I would come and evaluate the work that her students were doing in the basic writing skills class, and you could see that there were so many elements of strong academic writing in that video. But she made it about digital literacy, and I hope you found it inspiring. I found it inspiring to watch. Thank you very much.